Good afternoon, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to the continuation of this meeting of the Committee of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport Affairs, meeting number 7 of the parliamentary year 2021-2022 of today, Thursday, October 27, 2022. I would like to welcome the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Anders Mr. Rudolph E. Samuel, and his support staff. We have established a quorum of 8 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. I now look to the floor. Are there any notifications? I see no need. The agenda point for this committee meeting is discussion with the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport on reviewing of pending initiatives and or plans regarding the development and implementation of a comprehensive St. Martin history course/program in secondary schools curriculum, and an update from the ministry on existing and potential textbooks to facilitate such a curriculum, IS 749-2020-2021, dated June 15, 2021. On June 15, 2021, Parliament received a letter from MP Gums and MP Peterson with the request that a meeting of the Committee of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport Affairs be convened in the presence of the respective minister and relevant civil servants with the above-mentioned agenda point. This document is registered as incoming document IS 749-2020-2021, dated June 15, 2021, and can be found on the P drive of Parliament. The meeting was convened and took place on April 14, 2022, during which the minister gave a presentation and members of Parliament posed questions to the minister. The meeting then was adjourned. The meeting was reconvened on August 24, 2022, during which the chairlady proposed that both agenda points be combined to one, considering that the presentation of the minister included both topics. The minister and his support staff then provided the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament during the meeting of April 14, 2022, and members of Parliament posed additional questions to the minister. The meeting was once again adjourned to allow the minister time to prepare the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament. Today, the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport has returned to Parliament to provide the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament during the meeting of August 24, 2022. Hence today's meeting. I would now like to give the floor to the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, for his opening remarks and to provide the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament during the meeting of August 24, 2022. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and good afternoon to you and the griffier. Good afternoon to the members of Parliament. I would like to also say good afternoon to my support staff. To my right, we have the Secretary General of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. And to my left, we have the head of the Department of Sports, Ms. Reyes. Ms. Shamina Powell is to my right. And to those who are listening out there in media land, to St. Martin, I say good afternoon. Madam Chair, I am pleased to be here this afternoon in Parliament to be able to give the answers to the final questions of this topic. And I would like to begin with answers to the questions to the Member of Parliament, MP Duncan. Question 1. The motion in January was specifically to establish a multidisciplinary work group of cultural heritage and civics. What steps are being taken, and what materials are developed for schools. What should people expect in 2 years when your steps are undertaken? And the MP wanted an indication to, a kind of a roadmap, something that would give us something to hold on to. The Department of Culture has been working towards establishing content and materials on St. Martin culture and history. The process involves inventorizing, researching, and interviewing knowledge bearers, practitioners, and scholars for available cultural content. For example, these include the Intangible Cultural Heritage Inventory, published books, videos, magazines, online presence, interviews, engaging with different stakeholders. The purpose is to create a cultural inventory of St. Martin culture, creative, artistic, and heritage assets to share content with the Education Department, formal and informal educational institutions, as well as the public at large. The process of gathering the volume of cultural, historical, creative, and artistic inventory to compile into formal structure will be part of a multi-annual planning process to be identified in 2023. For example, the ICH, which is the Intangible Cultural Heritage Inventory compiled by the Department of Culture and UNESCO, is a 4-year work in progress. In 2 years, the department envisions a clear plan of action to chart a trajectory to go from inventorizing to compiling to cataloging. Specific to the multidisciplinary work group, the department will collaborate with the Division of Education Innovation, the Department of Education, and UNESCO to begin the process to identify potential candidates to form the working group. The progress will begin as part of the 2023 planning. The second question. Question 13 was how frequently are social study material updated and in schools? And it goes on to say the minister responded that the ministry is to evaluate every 3 to 5 years. Resources have not been updated recently. However, an updated terms of reference is developed to further update. Can more clarity be given on the terms of reference developed? Earlier this month, the Division for Education Innovation advertised the terms of reference to draft an amendment for the social studies texts and workbooks in primary schools. We received 8 responses from interested parties requesting terms of reference. The terms of reference has been sent, will be sent to Parliament for Parliament to get a copy of the terms of reference which have been advertised. The following are questions from Member of Parliament Gomes. What type and frequency of training for teachers are planned to enhance their digital skills? On one hand, we must understand that school boards are the competent authorities for ensuring that their teaching personnel obtain the required digital skills. And in the case of public education, each school will identify 2 teachers who will receive professional development under a train-the-trainer format. These teachers will serve as resource persons not only for their schools but for all public schools. This training will be coordinated between DE and DPE, and the training will include new methods of delivery of instructional design, improving the level of basic IT and media literacy, and providing a methodology to transition traditional classroom into modern learning environments. The following question. Minister indicated that the special needs policy and higher education ordinance is in an advanced stage. What is the advanced stage and what feedback has been received regarding the ordinance? The answer is here. The special needs policy is currently in draft form. because it's not finished. The current draft is to be updated, taking into account an ongoing situational analysis and recommendations coming from research. The final draft of the policy is expected to be finalized by the end of 2022. The National Ordinance on Higher Education has also been broadly consulted on this and by stakeholders. It has been vetted by the Council of Advice, and another report is being drafted so that the legislation can be sent to Parliament. So that has to do with the Higher Education Ordinance, and the other one has to do with the Special Needs Policy. I can inform Parliament that I have been provided with a presentation of the situational analysis. So what we have done is we have assessed in all the formal institutions how many special needs we have and what kind, and then we also assess outside of the formal institutions what we have out there. It is very, I don't want to say, there is a lot, and there's a lot of different types. And on another day, I will be able to come to Parliament when the assessment is finalized and when the policy is finalized, in order to present to Parliament and the people of St. Martin the need that is out there in terms of for special needs. And it is very interesting when you read so much about it. One thing I would do say is that we are going to need funds in order to be able to take care of our special needs, and we are also going to need professionals who will also be needed in that aspect. The following questions are questions from the Member of Parliament Westcott. How can we ensure that our St. Martin history is included in all its facets in the education system? We need clear objectives of what should be in the curriculum to establish the framework that must be taught in schools. The Minister has the authority to establish the framework. St. Martin history is included in all facets of the education system. It is captured in the curriculum of foundation-based education in social studies and cultural artistic development. It is also captured within the secondary education curriculum in Man and Society, and it is also captured in the Bachelors of Arts program by USM for aspiring teachers. Objectives are captured also in the curriculum at all stages. USM made a public outcry on the Higher Education, Tertiary Education Ordinance. What is the issue to get the higher education law brought to Parliament? Where is this law, and when will it get to Parliament? As indicated previously, the National Ordinance on Higher Education has been vetted by the Council of Advice, and another report is being drafted so that the legislation can be sent to Parliament for further handling. So I know that the Raad van Advies have already given their verdict on it, and I know that it went to the legal department for vetting, and the comments from CEYCSA, which is the legal department, is now being handled. And I guess after that step, it goes via COM to come to the Parliament. So I do hope, because it is a long-awaited ordinance. Point 3, education supervision law. What is the issue and where is it currently? There are no issues with the National Ordinance on Education Supervision. It has been broadly consulted on by stakeholders, and it's now being revised based on the feedback that was also provided by the legal department. So there is where it is at the moment. Number 4, the Culture Ordinance. Is this still in the making? I can say no, because it's on hold. The draft ordinance has been reviewed by Judicial Affairs, and Judicial Affairs advise it may be more suitable to establish the document as a policy, as there exist ordinances that contain elements that relate to culture. And these ordinances are, for example, the Monument Ordinance, the Film Ordinance of Bioscoopverordening, Cinema Ordinance, de Maritime Ordinance, de Landsverordening houdende regels met betrekking tot de in- en uitvoer van goederen, de Landsverordening Auteursordinance, de Landsverordening houdende vaststelling van bepalingen met betrekking tot de exploitatie van televisie/inrichtingen, television ordinance. These laws/ordinances are already in existence and as such can be updated over time to include specific cultural components. The policy will combine cultural elements contained in the different ordinances and formulate a clear vision for the future of the cultural landscape for St. Martin. Then, Madam Chair, I have the final question. What does it take to start the process? What should be taught about St. Martin in education? The government needs to give direction. The review of the curriculum in secondary education will be an integral part of the current reform, specifically for the further development of the curriculum for St. Martin history. An assessment of the gaps in the current curriculum for the first couple of years of basic education must be done. Also, an assessment of the curriculum for history in CEYCSA Cape and the higher levels of VSBO, HAVO, and VWO to determine the extent to which St. Martin history can further elaborate on as part of the exam subject. Also, draft proposed changes for the first 2 years in basic education and the upper years in CSEC and CAPE and the higher levels of VSBO, HAVO, and VWO. Assess the extent to which legislative changes are required to establish the proposed changes. Make recommended changes to the curriculum in consultation with the relevant actors, and make recommended amendments to the education legislation. The process to developing a common vision for the secondary education form is expected to be concluded by the second quarter in 2023, after which the assessment of specific required changes will begin. The process of updating the curriculum related to St. Martin history is one that is expected to take at least 2 years from the initial assessment to the presentation of amendments to the curriculum and the laws, if required, for decision making. Madam Chair Lady, with this, I would like to indicate that those are the answers to the questions posed by the members of Parliament. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. To whom can I give the floor for clarifications? MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. A good afternoon to you, a good afternoon to my colleagues, and a good afternoon to the Minister and his support staff. Thank you for those answers provided. Through you, Madam Chair Lady, from the Minister I can get some more specifics where it pertains to the law on tertiary education and the reference by the Minister to the fact that the Council of Advice has advised and the NADER report is being prepared. The Minister also in that context mentioned the Legal Affairs Department. Am I to understand that it's the Legal Affairs Department that is looking at the so-called NADER report, which is the response by government to the advice of the Council of Advice? So is it the Legal Affairs Department that is looking? Because usually you have content and legal comments by the Council of Advice on a law. So I'm asking, is it Is it at Legal Affairs to prepare the NADA report, or are they the ones coordinating it, is my question. That's with respect to the matter on the law on tertiary education. And related to that question is the question whether stakeholders such as the University of St. Martin, are they aware, are they being kept abreast of the process on the law on higher education / tertiary education? Secondly, Madam Chair Lady, the matter of the curricula. Am I to understand that as part of the reform in education, as per the country package, that this is including a review on the curriculum, as including the history curriculum? And if this is the case, can the minister provide very specifically the points of the curriculum overall that are going to be addressed as part of the reform in education as per the country package? So what specific measures or sub-measures are anticipated as far as the review of curricula is concerned, and that fit in the country package? So if the minister can expand on those two issues for me. And Madam Chair Lady, I would be amiss if I was not to use the presence of the minister in this meeting and ask him regarding a point that I have brought up on more than one occasion with the minister, that the minister has responded to. In fact, in his most, I believe the latest report that we got from the minister was a presentation on the technicalities involved. But I would really like to know if since then the minister has any information regarding tackling the issue of the use of e-cigarettes in all their forms by the school-going youth on St. Martin. And yes, Madam Chair Lady, it has once again been raised by teen times, but the minister would have to agree that I have been asking him about this issue for months now. Reason why I'm asking the minister and has been asking the minister, because it's also a known fact that if we are to address an issue, it's one thing to say, well, Parliament go draft a law, but if it is not collaborated with the government, we get nowhere fast. So I would like to know if the minister can now address that matter for me, and if he doesn't have the information at hand, if he can give me a status report on the issue of vaping, juuling, some call it, but it is the use of e-cigarettes. One would recall the minister came, gave us a whole presentation, what it means, what it does. But my issue was, is it considered by the government to be a problem? One, and if so, are steps to be taken? And thirdly, what steps? But again, Madam Chair Lady, because this was not specifically addressed now by the minister, I would be content if the minister was to commit to provide the Parliament and myself with an update on this matter so that I would know how further to take the matter myself. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor to MP Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the Minister and the support staff, and good afternoon to everyone tuned in. Madam Chair Lady, I am a bit confused, actually, to piggyback off of MP Westcott Williams' question specifically about, indeed, is a review of the curriculum now a part of the work group? Because that would be very interesting, and to receive the details of that would be extremely important. Madam Chair, I heard two things. I heard that next year a work group would be put in place, but then at the same time, I heard that there will be an assessment on the extent to which our history can be included, and that will take 2 years. I would like clarity I would like to also say that the Department of Culture has been working extremely hard to inventorize our heritage and culture. And that means that that inventory is there. And you just take it and you give it to curriculum writers, you give it to project workers and managers, and we get our books in schools and we update the materials that are being used in schools. I do not believe it should take a very long time. So, yeah, I just want clarity, Madam Chair, on that. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, MP Duncan. I give the floor to MP Ponteflet.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to the Chair, my colleagues in the committee, those that are viewing and probably listening. Madam Chair, I didn't ask any questions, but one of my colleagues mentioned the issue of the vaping and asked the minister to bring some information or what is being done about it. My advice, Madam Chair, through to the minister would be include the Ministry of Justice, include Economic Affairs, because in the report it mentioned, or in the article it 10 times mentioned, supermarkets is where it's being bought. So I think that since supermarkets are involved, it means that then the Ministry of Economic Affairs should also be involved in this issue. So not Ministry of Education alone, but include Justice and also the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Ponteflet. I give the floor to MP Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you and my colleagues and those viewing. Madam Chair, when seeing this agenda point and talking about our, what are we going to have within the curriculum of educating our young people and all of these things that are so important. There's one book that always comes to mind, and for me has always been one of the best sources of educating ourselves, and I think everybody is very familiar with this beautiful cover, national symbols, and there's a lot of things in here. But most recently, I had to go back to this book because now there appears to be some sort of a debate on what is in the middle of this book, which is what is considered by this book to be a proposed national flag for St. Martin. This book, from what I understand, was created as a culmination of all the research that was done for several years to identify what are the key symbols and national symbols, sayings, history, the meaning of the pond, salt, etc., and to see how this could be incorporated into this. So, Madam Chair, not just from an educational perspective of having this book incorporated, what is the government's position on, let's say, the validity of this book? I see it in the parliament, in our library. We see it in the government building. We see it everywhere. So to me, there's a very clear recognition that whatever shade is going to be thrown to make it sound like the unity flag is just a group of little friends that draw it up together, this book is historical evidence to the contrary. And I think it's important that the government, we see what the French side has done. I'm sure maybe the minister can update us on what his activities are related to this flag. I would like to know if the minister can talk a little about that in addition to having this book as part of our curriculums going forward. But, Madam Chair, I think it would be remiss of me not to encourage the public and also members of parliament to realize that all national symbols in our country affect people sometimes very emotionally and very deeply, because that's what a symbol is. A symbol means something to you very intrinsically and very close to you. And when we have local heroes that worked on this, like Lassana Sekou, Dr. Rhoda Arundel, and many others, I don't think it's fair for us to just cast aside and not, at least as a parliament, if not also as a government, get a position on where we want, what we truly want to see, not just the national symbol of what we call the unity flag, but all of these national symbols somehow cemented into our governmental and parliamentary recognition. That let's put this aside, that it should no longer be a discussion of what the Panam dance means to us or what the flamboyant tree or the pelican, etc. I think it needs to be clear. Most countries have that. very officially, where they have a decree that comes out and states, this is what our national dish, our national flag, our national this. Many countries have that. Is the government going to consider by decree somehow, again, maybe that's a legal term, but some sort of statement as to what these symbols are and what they mean to the people of St. Martin? Madam Chair, in this book, there is a very interesting timeline and it's a short timeline because this book dates back to 1993. The last edition was 1996. Well, the third edition that I have now is from 1996. And even in between 1993 to 1996, 1991 to 1996, you see a timeline, okay, of how this flag has been recognized by many, both within society but also within politics. And I'm sure you had the NRP, Richard Gibson, recognize the flag. You had then Commissioner William Marlin of the SPA. That was in February of 1993. You had a very interesting situation that took place in 1993, where there was an ad hoc solidarity committee that was protesting the arrest of the late Dr. Claude Watty. And one of the things that happened is for that day, or for at least a moment, according to the book, the Dutch flag was put down and the unity flag was flown. This is what has, the level of recognition this flag has had. And I would like for us to really come to a decision. I would like to see my government tell us or advise us what they think about this, and then bring this into the curriculum with all of the symbols that have been beautifully incorporated into that emblem, the monument, the tamarind leaves, the sandbox tree leaves, the rock wall. All of that symbolism is incorporated into this flag. And I think it's important that we recognize it and we respect it. Everybody has their personal opinion on what they want to recognize or not. But I, for one, would not put aside the heavy research and work that was done by these individuals, these stalwarts of culture and history, and simply say that, oh, that's just a flag that some friends drew up together and I don't recognize it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Bryson. Any other member of parliament wishes to have the floor? Okay, none. Minister, are you able to answer, or would you like to have a few minutes to decide a way forward? Yeah. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, three specific questions raised by the Member of Parliament, Westcott Williams. One has to do with the ordinance on higher education. The other one has to do with the curricula and the review. And the third one has to do with the vaping and the e-cigarette. In regards to the ordinance on higher education, and I believe, according to what I understand correctly, that we are at the end of the legislative trajectory with this ordinance. So, under the NADA report from the Radford Fees, we have looked at it and we have asked CEYCSA and Way for some final critique or some final review on what we have. And if my memory serves me right, it's supposed to be at the Department of Education, looking at the final review of it, and then it can go to Parliament. Yes, we have kept the USM involved as a stakeholder in the development, in the trajectory and developing the legislation. So they are up to date, and communication between ECYS and USM on this matter is good. The second item in terms of the curricula and the review, I would like to ask through you, Madam Chair, to the Member of Parliament to be able to send this answer in writing. I think that is would be okay if it's all right. And then in regards to the vaping, which the Member of Parliament indeed raised and also indicated that if we can work together, in the event it is necessary to do some legislative changes or development. And I can update that I did have an initial meeting with a professional from Turning Point, and we are to meet again in this month. And as indicated, I will keep the Member of Parliament abreast to the development on this specific issue. Then, Madam Chair, the question from the Member of Parliament, MP Duncan, I would like to suggest the same, that because it is the same question with MP Westcott Williams, that I will submit it in writing. The comments from MP Pontiflet, thank you, well taken. And then the question or comments from the Member of Parliament, MP Bryson. The first thing I would like to say to the members of Parliament and the people of St. Martin is not a national symbol. So if you're referring to what is to be expected from the unity flag, it's not a national symbol, but a cultural symbol. That is totally different. Because I believe if we have to establish a national symbol, we need to come in this house and ask you for that. A cultural symbol, a cultural item is not something you decide to legislate and tell the people, by law, you are now to accept this as part of your culture. The flag, our food, our dress wear, our songs, these are things that they grow from within the community. The people live them. This flag, as you might know, from the time it was conceptualized and given, it was not given as this is a cultural flag of St. Martin or this is a national flag of St. Martin. It was developed most naturally. It comes from the vision of a person, and that is their intellectual property. And once it was done, it lived the life of its own. And as you indicated, it now has its own intrinsic value. People have it on their car. They make banners of it. They make scarves. It is being sold. Even the Minister of Education put it on his car yesterday together with the St. Martin flag, and I'm encouraging you all to do the same because it is now part of the community. If you go down to anywhere in St. Martin and you say this is a monument building or this is another monument, those have also been things that were done by persons. And today we establish them as monuments, but they are personal buildings or items belonging to individuals. So yes, the flag have an owner because it was conceptualized by someone's vision. And to be able to accept or sign this symbol, this cultural symbol, as a cultural symbol of unity between the Dutch and the French, or the North and the South, or the people of St. Martin. The government of St. Martin have asked for permission from the owners, because you cannot just do something with something that doesn't belong to you. And it is the intention to sign a user agreement with them, or propose that we get permission, and also to sign a MOU with the northern side of the island in regards to something of unity. Now, if we go back in history, and one of the things that was in my mind, I can say that the movement of the people from the French and the Dutch side, or from the north and the south of the island, was so important that it was laid down in a treaty. We call it the Treaty of Concordia. But look how many years ago that was done. And we have practices today, like you indicated, we have not yet established them. Our dress wear, our food, our dance, all the aspects of our culture. If you remember last St. Martin's Day, or the right, I also indicated with the folkloric dresses that were displayed and shown that this too is an indication of what our cultural dress wear is about. Now, also to establish this, you need research. So when I speak with the head of the Department of Culture, I'm told it just doesn't happen so. You have to take your time and you have to research and really make sure that you know if this is the dress wear, these are the specifics of it. And then when you lay that down, you come to Parliament also and you say, this is what we want to do to establish what is considered the dress wear, the cultural dress wear of St. Martin. So yes, we are busy. In regards to the unity flag, because that's the name of the item. So that too is very important. The name of the item is the St. Martin Unity Flag. So it isn't that we call it the St. Martin Unity, that's the name of it. So, and that is what we intend to agree on to sign the MOU with. It is the intention of the government to also come to Parliament in order to give a presentation to Parliament, you know, in regards to what the intention of government is, and I expect that to happen very shortly, somewhere before the 11th of November. That is what I can say for now in regards to the item. The book indeed has a lot of information in it, you know, so we use the item, the flag, indiscriminately, but how did that come about? If you go downtown and you say, you know, the courthouse is there, we didn't start out and saying it was a monument. The Methodist Church is there as a monument. The Catholic Church is a monument. They all belongs to someone. They have owners, but they are our monuments. So we protect them while, you know, and I want to say having something that unifies both sides of the island is a unique situation for St. Martin. It is very interesting for someone who born on the French side and grew up on the Dutch side. They can't feel any way from both sides of the island how, you know, it is one island, one people. And one thing, Madam Chair, I will tell you is you will never get 100% agreement on nothing. But it all grows into what it will be. And when researching this item, my mind also ran on those individuals who born in St. Martin after 10-10-10. So in the next couple of years, you will have what I consider to be the born St. Martiner that have reached 18 years. Because before that, we had the born Netherlands Antilles person. So we can call ourselves Antillians. They cannot call themselves Antillians. They can only call themselves born St. Martiners. Okay, so for me, Madam Chair, with this, this is my answer to Parliament. I thank you. And with
Thank
permission
you.
again, that I can provide in writing to the two members of Parliament.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. I look to the floor of Parliament, MP Westcott Williams.
Madam Chair Lady, I can agree that the minister would send in writing what he promised. I would like this committee to note that, please, so that we really can get this matter of curricular development and the initiatives that are taking place outside of the ministry with respect to this. I think these things need to be coordinated and collaborated, and that can only happen if we have some type of a timeline in front of us in terms of which steps are to be taken. And the same comment also pertains to some of the other activities, especially in the area of culture. And I would like to know in terms of because yes, we have to research it. And the history of this country is not what I perceive it to be, because I look at it from my perspective, and so does everyone. But the more general approach to that, where are we with that? Because we need to establish that in order to determine, for example, our traditional wear. You see what I'm saying, Minister? So the history itself, and yet a lot has been written and researched already. And this information needs to somehow be centralized as we do the review and we do the vetting of the information. But so we need to agree on the starting position, and then decide, then we talk about the dress and the food and the whatever else have you. So, Madam Chair Lady, but where it pertains to the curriculum, I think we really need to get a clear understanding who is doing exactly what, and within what time frame will these things be addressed. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor to MP Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, I was born in 1982 on St. Martin, and I am a St. Martiner. I'm not an Antillian. And the thing is, the issue that we have is citizenship. It's citizenship. But indeed, we have an issue with identity, which goes back to the fact that we need not only to indeed have our inventory ready, but to ensure that our people know who they are. Minister, yesterday we were at a conference, a few of us, that was yesterday or day before yesterday, Islands 2030. And the conference was about park planning and environmental education. Unfortunately, there weren't any public school teachers, I don't think, there. But it was interesting because a gentleman who I believe can be a little bit older than myself, so maybe 10 years older than me, who is a youth worker, told us a story about when he was in high school in MPC, and you were his biology teacher. And you were teaching about or talking about tulips, and he came up to you and said, "Teacher, I don't want to learn about tulips." Or first he said, "Can I find a tulip on St. Martin?" And you said, "No, it's a flower that grows in the Netherlands." And he asked, "Well, why can't I learn about St. Martin flowers?" And you kind of didn't have an answer for him. Or you told him, it's kind of not in the curriculum. And this was almost 40 years ago. Minister, so for me, we need to have a sense of urgency. And we're not only talking culture, we're talking civics, we're talking environmental education. We are talking everything that pertains to identity in this country. And if it is a capacity issue, that is why I always ask about a work group or a committee being established to support the work that is being done by the departments. I know I was there, the departments are stretched thin. So is it to get budget to give them, to put some teams in place, to hire persons? I heard that tours are going out, but we need to do something now. And according to you, work is being done, and I'm happy to hear that, and I look forward to 2023 when we could expect some improvements in that area. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duncan. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
I know we have another meeting, so I'll be quick, but I missed this very important point as well. It is difficult, in my opinion, to tell the history/story of St. Martin, particularly for the last, let's say, 50 years, without talking about tourism. Because in the years of the late 60s and 70s, it is the advent of tourism that really forever changed the shape, the economy of St. Martin. I mean, starting with Mullet Bay development, Great Bay Hotel, etc. So my question, and Minister, please, you can provide it in writing as well. I would like to know what are the plans for incorporating tourism as a subject within the schools. I mentioned before at previous debates, if you look, for example, at the CAPE program from CXC, they do have tourism as a subject. They also have tourism history as one of the modules there. I can imagine that history might be more as a Caribbean, okay, this is when the cruise ship started, this is when airports start to open across the Caribbean. Still very relevant for our unique tourism product, and it would help so much that we have people understanding what tourism really is, that it's not a type of profession it's a profession that you can look forward to getting into, because there's still a bit of a stigma in St. Martin compared to other countries where tourism is taught in school, that you can get an entry-level job in a hotel or in a restaurant, and that can become a good career for you. Let's be real, that is something that is missing in St. Martin, and I have a feeling that incorporating tourism will help a lot with that brain drain and motivation to want to be within the tourism industry, which can help us with bringing in less foreign labor as a result as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Bryson. Is there any other MP Pontiflet? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to avoid it, but I said, let me say it anyhow. Sometimes it's good to say something whether it's controversial or whatever. But the issue of where you're born is a very important subject, and my colleague mentioned born St. Martin, St. Martino. You know, there's a discussion that definitely should be held as to who indeed is a St. Martino. Is it someone that was born on St. Martin? Is it someone that was born someplace else and grew up on St. Martin 30, 40 years, like myself, who was born in Aruba? Then I have to consider myself an Arubian, right? So the issue is, I think we should really, it's a good issue to discuss. I mean, what makes one a St. Martino? Is it being born here? Or is it that you lived here 40, 50 years, whatever, you know? So I think it should be a very good topic to discuss. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Pontiflet. I look to the floor. Okay, so I would now like to ask the members of Parliament if you are okay with the suggestion of the Minister of providing the remaining answers in writing. Okay with that? Okay, thank you. Minister, would you like to have the floor for any final words?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, my days of standing in front of the classroom as a biology teacher, talking about a tulip and the different types of flowers would not have afforded me, or the opportunity that I would not have taken to explain a student anything about any kind of flowers. That I have been trained to sit in a grass field and in a 10 by 10 square to indicate how many different types of grass is there. When I came home, I also walked with my guide, because there is a guide where you look at a plant, and based on the stem of the plant, the shape of the leaves, the colors of the flowers, you can use the guide to get the original Latin name of that plant. So with my love for biology, whether it is human beings, animals, insects, viruses, bacteria, I'm home. So I definitely know if that student asked me a question, I would have answered that. And discussing tulips and the way how a butterfly lands on one tulip and how the tulip develops out of a ball and all of those things are very interesting topics of biology. They're beautiful. Then I wanted to say, I believe that the topic of tourism as an economic pillar, a way of doing business, I believe that I will check to see as to how far, but I believe it is. I mean, if you talk about USM and the hospitality, yes, to show you how important it is. that hospitality was so big that one of the first assignments that went to USM was that, you know, and we cannot get away from that, just like agriculture was also one of the pillars at the time. Then, briefly, I love the topic about St. Martina, but you have to listen to what I referred to. I am saying prior to 10-10-10, we can consider persons born on St. Martin like myself and others all to be an Antillian. But after 10-10-10, the person born on St. Martin cannot call themselves an Antillian. From that perspective, I'm looking at it. Because there was no more Netherlands Antilles. And I would love to debate that topic any day. You are not an Antillian if there was no Netherlands Antilles. It's the same way in the Netherlands. We had the Antillian House, and after the breaking up of the Netherlands Antilles, we now have the St. Martin House, the Curaçao House, and the Aruba House. You know, so the same way can't say there are Caribbean Dutch islands, but there's Saba, Statia, and Bonaire. But that's a topic we can come back and discuss anytime. I thank you, Madam Chair, and I hope that I have provided explanations thus far, and that the answers will be sent in writing to the members of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And if there are no further comments, I would like to thank the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, and his support staff for their presence here today and for providing the necessary information. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting.